You only get to humiliate me as long as I stay silent, and I'm done being silent.
The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the white tablecloth as Franklin Waters raised his wine glass, his pale blue eyes gleaming with that particular brand of cruelty that comes wrapped in expensive suits and old money arrogance. "A toast," he announced, his voice carrying across the private dining room of Meridian's finest restaurant, "to family, tradition, and knowing one's place in the world." I sat there in my work clothes, clean Carhartt pants and a company polo, feeling every disapproving glance from the assembled Waters family elite. My wife Emily had insisted I come straight from the job site, claiming there wasn't time to go home and change. Now I understood why. "Some of us," Franklin continued, his gaze settling on me like a hawk spotting wounded prey, "have been blessed with education, breeding, and the wisdom to build something lasting. Others—" He paused dramatically, savoring the moment. "Well, others fix air conditioners." The table erupted in polite laughter. Emily's cousin Margaret tittered behind her manicured fingers. Her brother David smirked into his wine. Even Emily, my wife of 8 years, couldn't suppress a small smile. "Dad," she said weakly, but there was no real protest in her voice. "I mean, no offense, Smith," Franklin said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "It's honest work, I suppose, but when I think about the future of our family name, the legacy we're building—" He shook his head sadly. "Well, let's just say some dreams require more than a high school diploma and a toolbox." The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I'd learned long ago not to show weakness around hunters like Franklin Waters. Instead, I took a slow sip of my beer, the only drink on the table that hadn't come from a wine cellar, and waited. "You know what's funny about legacy, Franklin?" I said finally, setting down my bottle with deliberate care. "Sometimes it's built by people you never see coming." Before he could respond, the restaurant manager approached our table, followed by a distinguished man in an expensive suit I recognized immediately. Robert Caldwell, CEO of New England's largest commercial real estate development company. "Mr. Waters," the manager said nervously, "I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Caldwell insisted on speaking with someone at your table." Franklin puffed up like a peacock, clearly assuming Caldwell wanted to meet him. "Of course. Robert, wonderful to see you. I believe we met at the Chamber of Commerce." "Actually," Caldwell interrupted smoothly, "I'm here to see Mr. Turner." His eyes found mine across the table. "Smith, I didn't expect to find you here. I wanted to personally thank you for the climate control system you designed for our new downtown complex. Absolutely brilliant work. The energy efficiency alone will save us hundreds of thousands annually." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the kitchen staff clattering dishes 2 rooms away. "I'm sorry," Margaret squeaked. "Did you say Smith designed—" "Oh yes," Caldwell continued, warming to his subject. "Turner Climate Solutions is revolutionizing commercial HVAC across New England. We've contracted them for all our major developments. Smith here is something of a legend in the industry. MIT keeps trying to poach him for their engineering department." Franklin's face had gone from smug satisfaction to confused horror, like a man watching his house burn down in slow motion. "There must be some mistake," he stammered. "Smith fixes air conditioners. He works with his hands." Caldwell laughed, a rich, genuine sound. "Franklin, the man owns the largest privately held HVAC company in the region. His innovations in sustainable climate control have patents pending in 12 states. The system keeping this very restaurant comfortable, that's Turner technology." Emily's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against her plate. The red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood. "Smith," she whispered, "is this true?" I stood up slowly, straightening my polo shirt, the one with Turner Climate Solutions embroidered on the chest, that everyone had been too snobbish to actually read. "Mr. Caldwell," I said, extending my hand, "always a pleasure. I hope the new system is meeting expectations." "Exceeding them, as usual. Listen, I don't want to keep you from your family dinner, but I'd love to discuss the Hartford project next week. My assistant will call yours." After he left, the silence stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. Franklin stared at me as if I'd just performed magic, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. "You let me," he began, then stopped, the full magnitude of his humiliation sinking in. Let you what, Franklin? Assume, judge, make an A of yourself in front of your entire family? I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. You never asked what I did for a living. You just decided I wasn't worth knowing. Emily found her voice first. Smith, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me? The hurt in her voice might have moved me once. Now it just sounded like damage control. Tell you what, Em? That I built something from nothing? That the toolbox Franklin mocked contains instruments worth more than his car? That while he was inheriting his daddy's money, I was earning mine? I shrugged. You never seemed interested in the details. David, Emily's brother, leaned forward aggressively. You made our father look like a fool. No, I said quietly, your father made himself look like a fool. I just stood here and let him do it. Franklin finally found his voice, though it came out as a croak. This is unacceptable. You humiliated me deliberately. Did I? By existing? By being successful at something you didn't understand? I looked around the table at their shocked faces. You know what's really unacceptable, Franklin? Spending 8 years treating your son-in-law like hired help because he didn't go to the right schools or know the right people. But don't worry, I won't be bothering you with my presence much longer. I kissed Emily's cheek, a cold, formal gesture that made her flinch. Happy Thanksgiving, sweetheart. Enjoy your family dinner. Walking out of that restaurant, leaving behind their stunned silence and Franklin's shattered ego, should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the end of something I'd been trying to save for far too long. The November air was sharp against my face as I climbed into my truck. A custom Ford F-350 that cost more than most people's houses, but looked like any other contractor's vehicle. Appearances, I'd learned, could be deceiving. Sometimes that worked against you. Sometimes it worked for you. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. We talked plenty over the years. The problem was, she'd never really listened. The house was dark when I got home, which wasn't unusual. Emily often worked late at her salon, building what she called her empire, a high-end beauty parlor that catered to the wives of wealthy men. I'd helped finance it, of course, though she preferred to tell people her father had backed the venture. I was in my workshop in the basement, sketching modifications for a new ventilation system, when I heard her car pull into the driveway. The engine revved twice before shutting off. Emily's tell when she was furious. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Smith! Her voice carried through the house like a siren. Get up here right now. I set down my pencil and climbed the stairs slowly, in no hurry to face whatever storm was brewing. Emily stood in the kitchen, still in her black cocktail dress from dinner, her carefully styled blonde hair slightly mussed and her makeup smeared from what looked like angry tears. How could you do that to my father? She demanded before I'd even reached the bottom step. How could you humiliate him like that in front of everyone? I didn't do anything to your father, Em. I sat there and took his misuse until someone else set the record straight. You planned this. She advanced on me, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like gunshots. You knew Robert Caldwell would be there. You orchestrated the whole thing to make Daddy look bad. I almost laughed. You think I control where Robert Caldwell eats dinner? You think I asked him to come over and praise my work? Emily, the man was being polite to a business associate. That's all. That's all? Her voice rose to a shriek. My father is the laughingstock of his social circle. Margaret called me 3 times on the drive home. Everyone's talking about how he was put in his place by the HVAC guy. Maybe if he hadn't spent the evening putting me in mine, he wouldn't have looked so foolish when the truth came out. Emily's face flushed red. The truth? What truth? That you've been lying to us for years about what you do? I never lied about anything. I told you I ran a climate control business. I told you I designed systems for commercial buildings. You just assumed that meant I was some kind of handyman because I didn't go to Harvard like your precious brother. I let you believe what you wanted to believe. The words came out harder than I'd intended, 8 years of frustration finally finding voice. You never asked about my work, Emily, not once. You never visited my office, never met my employees, never showed the slightest interest in how I made the money that paid for this house, your car, your salon. She stepped back as if I had slapped her. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you asked me about my day? When's the last time you introduced me to your friends as anything other than my husband who works in heating and air? When's the last time you acted like you were proud to be married to me instead of embarrassed? The questions hung in the air between us like accusations. Emily's mouth worked silently, searching for denials that wouldn't come. You made me look like an idiot too, she said finally, standing there in your work clothes while Robert Caldwell talked about patents and MIT. I had no idea what to say. You could have said you were proud of me. How could I be proud when I didn't even know who you were? The words hit like a physical blow. I stared at my wife, this woman I'd loved since college, whose dreams I'd supported, whose family I'd endured, and realized she was right. She didn't know who I was. Worse, she'd never wanted to know. You're right, I said quietly. You don't know me at all. Something in my tone must have warned her that the conversation was shifting into dangerous territory. Her anger flickered, replaced by uncertainty. Smith, I didn't mean, yes, you did. And you know what? That's on both of us. I should have made you see who I really was years ago. But I shook my head. I thought if I just kept building, kept succeeding, eventually you'd notice. Eventually you'd be proud. I am proud. No, you're not. You're embarrassed. You've always been embarrassed. I'm not polished enough, not educated enough, not connected enough for the life you want to live. Emily's composure cracked. That's not fair. I married you, didn't I? I chose you. Did you? Or did you choose the potential you saw in me? The project I represented? The fixer-upper husband you could renovate into someone worthy of the Waters family name? She flinched. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm being completely honest. I looked around the kitchen. Granite countertops I'd paid for, stainless steel appliances she'd chosen, custom cabinets designed to impress her friends. You want to know what would make this right, Em? What would fix the terrible embarrassment I caused your father tonight? Hope flickered in her eyes. What? You want me to donate my services to fix the heating system at your salon, for free, as an apology for making Franklin look bad. Her silence was answer enough. That's what you were building up to, wasn't it? The whole wounded wife routine, the accusations, the guilt trip, all leading up to asking me to work for free to make amends for the crime of being successful. The system has been acting up, she said defensively. And after tonight, people are going to expect your husband to work for free because your father insulted him? People are going to expect me to apologize for his bad behavior by donating thousands of dollars in labor and materials? It would be good publicity for your company. My company doesn't need publicity from your salon, Emily. We're booked solid and for the next 18 months. Her face hardened. So you won't do it? No, I won't. What happened next would replay in my mind for weeks afterward. Emily's carefully controlled mask slipped completely, revealing something ugly underneath. Something I'd glimpsed before but never seen so clearly. You selfish fool, she hissed. You humiliate my family and then refuse to make it right. You care more about your precious money than about me, than about us. This isn't about money. Everything's about money with you. You wave your success around like some kind of weapon, but when I need you to actually use it to help, you're too cheap and petty to help? You call working for free helping? I call supporting your wife helping. I call caring about my reputation helping. Her voice rose to a scream. But you don't care about anything except proving how much smarter you are than everyone else. The words came out like venom, each one calculated to wound. But it was what she said next that ended everything between us. You know what? Maybe Daddy was right. Maybe you are just a glorified repairman. Maybe all the patents and fancy systems in the world can't change what you really are. A blue-collar nobody who got lucky. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily seemed to realize she'd gone too far, her hand flying to her mouth as if she could take the words back. Smith, I didn't mean, yes, you did. My voice came out calm, almost conversational. You meant every word. You've been thinking it for years, and tonight you finally said it. I walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. What are you doing? Panic crept into her voice. Leaving. You want to know what I really am, Emily? I'm a man who's smart enough not to stay where he's not wanted. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this. We just did talk about it. You told me exactly what you think of me, and I listened. Now I'm responding. She grabbed my arm as I headed for the stairs. Smith, please. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then up at her face. The problem is, I think you did mean them. I think you meant every single word. Packing took less time than I'd expected. 8 years of marriage, and most of what mattered to me fit in 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. While I worked, Emily alternated between pleading and threatening, her voice following me from room to room like a ghost. "Where are you going to go?" she demanded as I loaded the last bag into my truck. "Hotel tonight. After that, we'll see." "This is ridiculous. You're throwing away our marriage over one fight?" I paused with my hand on the truck door. This wasn't one fight. This was 8 years of fights that we never had. 8 years of you being ashamed of who I am and me pretending not to notice. I'm not ashamed. Your father spent 20 minutes tonight mocking my education, my background, my work. You sat there and smiled. When Robert Caldwell corrected him, your first concern wasn't that I'd been insulted. It was that Franklin had been embarrassed. He's my father, and I'm your husband. Or I was. The past tense hung between us like a capital punishment. Emily's face went white. "You don't mean that." "I mean every word." I climbed into the truck and started the engine. "You wanted to know what I really am, Emily? I'm a man who knows his worth, and I'm worth more than this." As I drove away, I could see her in the rearview mirror, standing in the driveway in her cocktail dress, looking small and lost in the glow of the porch light I'd installed 3 summers ago. My phone started ringing before I'd reached the end of our street. I turned it off without looking at the caller ID. Some conversations were over. The Marriott downtown was the kind of anonymous luxury I needed. Clean, efficient, and far enough from our neighborhood that I wouldn't run into Emily's friends at the hotel bar. I checked in under my company name and spent the first night staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening's events and wondering how I'd missed so many warning signs. Morning brought clarity and a plan. I'd built Turner Climate Solutions from nothing by being methodical, thorough, and always thinking 3 steps ahead. If my marriage was over, and after last night I was certain it was, then I needed to approach the divorce the same way I approached everything else, strategically. My first call was to Patricia Vance, the best divorce attorney in the state and a woman who'd helped design the legal structure of my company years ago. "Smith Turner," she said when her assistant put me through. "I haven't heard from you in ages. Please tell me this isn't about what I think it's about." "Afraid so, Pat. I need representation." "When?" "Starting today." There was a pause. "That bad?" "That final." "My office." 10 a.m. "And Smith, don't talk to her, don't text her, don't communicate at all until we meet. Whatever happened, let me handle it from here." The law offices of Vance & Associates occupied the top floor of the city's second tallest building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the harbor. Patricia met me in her corner office, a sharp-featured woman in her 50s who'd earned her reputation by being smarter and more ruthless than anyone expected. "Tell me everything," she said, settling behind her mahogany desk with a legal pad. I walked her through the Thanksgiving dinner, the confrontation afterward, Emily's demands, and the final explosive argument. Patricia took notes without comment, occasionally asking for clarification on timing or specific words used. "The salon," she said when I finished. "You helped finance it?" "Completely. Initial investment, equipment, renovation costs, first year's operating expenses. Total outlay around $300,000. Documentation? Bank transfers, receipts, contracts. I keep good records. And the house? Purchased before marriage, but I've put significant money into improvements. New kitchen, master bath renovation, finished basement, updated electrical and HVAC throughout. Probably added $200,000 in value." Patricia's pen scratched across the paper. "Other assets?" "The company's worth is complicated. It's privately held, no recent valuation. Personal accounts, investment portfolio, retirement funds. I'd estimate total net worth around $4.2 million. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "And hers?" "The salon's profitable but leveraged. Maybe $50,000 in personal savings. Her father has money, but it's tied up in trusts and real estate. Children? No. Prenup? No. We were young and broke when we got married. Or I thought we were both broke." Patricia set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. "Smith, I have to ask this directly. Is there any chance she'll fight the divorce itself, or are we talking about asset division?" "She'll fight. Emily doesn't like to lose, and she definitely doesn't like being left. But more than that," I paused, trying to articulate something I was only beginning to understand. "I think she's going to be shocked by the financial reality. She's never paid attention to money because there was always enough. When she realizes what she stands to lose, she'll fight hard. Infidelity? Not that I know of. But Pat, I want you to assume there might be. Emily's been distant for months, working late, taking trips I'm not invited on. If she's involved with someone else, I want to know about it. I can recommend a private investigator. No need, I'll handle that part myself. Patricia frowned. Smith, that's not advisable. Anything you discover might not be admissible if it's obtained improperly. I'm not planning to break any laws, but I know my wife and I know how to be thorough. If there's something to find, I'll find it the right way. She studied me for a long moment. You've changed since the last time we worked together. You seem harder. I've learned some things about myself and about the people I trusted. All right, I'll file the papers today. Massachusetts is a no-fault state, so we'll cite irreconcilable differences. I'll also file for temporary support orders and asset preservation to prevent her from liquidating anything while the case is pending. How long? If she cooperates, 6 months. If she fights? Patricia shrugged. Could be years. As I left her office, my phone buzzed with another call from Emily. The 14th since last night. I let it go to voicemail, but this time I listened to the message. Smith, please call me back. I know you're angry, but we can work this out. I've been thinking about what you said, and you're right about some things. Maybe we both need to make changes. Please don't throw away 8 years over one bad night. I love you. The words might have moved me yesterday. Now they just sounded like negotiation tactics. My next stop was Turner Climate Solutions headquarters, a modern building I designed and built 3 years ago in the city's growing tech corridor. My assistant, Carol, looked up from her desk with obvious relief when I walked in. Thank God you're here. I've been fielding calls all morning from people wanting to congratulate you on the Caldwell project. Apparently there was some kind of scene at a restaurant last night. Something like that. Carol, I need you to do me a favor. Pull all the financial records related to Emily's salon, initial investment, equipment purchases, renovation costs, everything. I want a complete accounting. Her expression grew concerned. Is everything all right? I'm getting divorced. Carol had worked for me for 5 years and knew better than to offer sympathy or ask questions. I'll have everything ready by this afternoon. One more thing. I'm going to be staying at the Marriott downtown for the foreseeable future. Forward any important calls there, but if Emily calls, I'm unavailable. No exceptions. Understood. That afternoon, I drove to Emily's salon for the first time in over a year. Lux Beauty occupied a prime corner location in the city's upscale shopping district. Its floor-to-ceiling windows offering passers-by glimpses of marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and beautiful women being pampered by an army of stylists. I parked across the street and waited. At 3:47 p.m., Emily emerged from the salon's front entrance, talking animatedly on her phone. She looked perfect, as always. Designer jeans, silk blouse, expensive handbag, every blonde hair in place. The conversation seemed heated. She gestured emphatically as she talked, her face flushed with anger or excitement. She ended the call and immediately dialed another number. This conversation was different, softer, more intimate. She smiled as she talked, touching her hair in a gesture I recognized from our early dating days. The call lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, she looked happier than I'd seen her in months. Interesting. Emily climbed into her BMW and drove east, away from our house. I followed at a distance, my truck's anonymous appearance making surveillance easy. She stopped at a strip mall on the other side of town, parking in front of a fitness center called Ironworks Gym. I watched from the parking lot of a nearby coffee shop as Emily entered the gym. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see her talking to a man at the front desk. Tall, muscular, dark hair, probably mid-30s. Their conversation looked friendly, familiar, too familiar. When Emily disappeared into the back of the gym, I walked across the parking lot and peered through the windows. The place was busy for a weekday afternoon, filled with serious athletes and fitness enthusiasts. I spotted Emily on a treadmill, running in expensive workout clothes I'd never seen before. The man from the front desk, who wore a shirt identifying him as staff, approached her machine. They talked while she ran, both of them smiling. I took pictures with my phone, being careful to capture their faces and the gym's identifying signage. Not for court, Patricia was right about admissibility, but for my own peace of mind. My phone rang as I walked back to my truck. Carol's number. Smith, I have those financial records you requested. Also, Emily called 3 times in the last hour. She sounds upset. How upset? She may have used some language that would make a sailor blush. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Anything else? Patricia Vance's office called. The papers have been filed. Emily should be served sometime tomorrow. Good. I'll be in first thing Monday morning. Have a good weekend, Carol. You too, boss. And Smith, for what it's worth, I always thought you could do better. That evening, I sat in my hotel room with Emily's financial records spread across the desk like evidence at a crime scene. The numbers told a story I'd been too trusting to read before. Regular cash deposits that didn't match the salon's credit card receipts, expense reports for business trips to cities where we had no clients, charges at restaurants and hotels during times when Emily claimed to be working late. Either my wife was running a very creative money laundering operation, or she'd been lying to me for months. My phone buzzed with a text message from a known number. This is Brad from Ironworks. Emily gave me your number. She's really upset about whatever's going on between you two. Maybe we could talk man to man? I stared at the message for a long time, pieces clicking into place. Brad from Ironworks. The intimate phone conversation. The expensive workout clothes. The unexplained expenses. I typed back, sure, when and where. His response came quickly. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Murphy's Tavern on 5th Street. I'll be at the bar. I deleted both messages and leaned back in my chair. Emily had moved fast, bringing her boyfriend into our marital problems within 24 hours of my leaving. That suggested either panic or a relationship that was already much deeper than casual fitness training. Tomorrow night, I'd find out which. Murphy's Tavern was the kind of blue-collar bar where I'd felt comfortable long before I had money. Dim lighting, cheap beer, and conversations that didn't require a college degree to follow. I arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance, nursing a Budweiser and watching the door. Brad arrived exactly on time, scanning the room with the confidence of a man who was used to being the strongest person in any given space. He was bigger than he'd looked through the gym windows, maybe 6'2", 220, with the kind of sculpted physique that came from making fitness a full-time job. He wore jeans and a tight black t-shirt that advertised his muscles like a billboard. I didn't stand when he approached my table. Smith? He extended a hand that I ignored. Brad Castellano, thanks for meeting me. Sit down, Brad. He settled into the booth across from me, his eyes taking in my work clothes and calloused hands with barely concealed amusement. Emily told me you were in construction or something. Something like that. You want a beer? Sure. He signaled the waitress with the casual authority of a regular customer. Look, Smith, I'm going to cut right to the chase. Emily's a mess. She's been crying at the gym for 2 days, telling everyone her husband walked out on Thanksgiving for no reason. Is that what she told you? She said you had some kind of blow-up with her father, then took it out on her. Made her feel like crap for not defending you or something. Brad's beer arrived, and he took a long pull. The thing is, Emily's a good person. She doesn't deserve to be treated like that. I studied his face in the bar's dim light. He was younger than I'd thought, probably early 30s, with the kind of easy confidence that came from being good-looking and knowing it. But there was something else there, something calculating behind the concerned friend act. How well do you know my wife, Brad? We're friends. She's been training at my gym for about 6 months. We talk. Just talk? His jaw tightened slightly. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm trying to figure out why my wife's personal trainer thinks he has the right to call me up and discuss my marriage. Because she's hurting, man. And from what she's told me, you're being a hole about the whole thing. I leaned forward. What exactly has she told you? That you humiliated her father in public, then refused to help fix the situation. That you care more about your pride than about your marriage. That you walked out instead of trying to work things out like an adult. Interesting version of events. You're saying it didn't happen that way. I'm saying there are usually 2 sides to every story. What's your side, Brad? He blinked. My side? Yeah, your side. See, I'm trying to figure out what your angle is here. Why does Emily's trainer care so much about her marriage that he's willing to meet with her husband? What's in it for you? Brad's face flushed red. Maybe I just don't like seeing good people get hurt. Or maybe you like seeing marriages fall apart. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken at the gym. Emily on the treadmill, Brad leaning close, both of them smiling intimately. It means I know exactly what kind of training you've been giving my wife. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Brad stared at the photo, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and finally calculation. You've been spying on her? I've been paying attention. Something I should have done months ago. Look, man, I don't know what you think you saw. I saw my wife spending money on workout clothes she hides from me, making phone calls that put a smile on her face, like she used to get when we were dating, and having intimate conversations with her muscle-bound trainer. I put the phone away. What I want to know is how long it's been going on. Brad's mask slipped completely. You want the truth? Fine. Emily's been unhappy for years. She married beneath herself, and she knows it. You think she doesn't see the way her friends look at you? The way her family treats you? She's embarrassed, Smith. She deserves better. Better like you? Better like someone who appreciates what he has. Someone who doesn't take her for granted. Someone who owns a gym and drives a 10-year-old Mustang? His face darkened. Money isn't everything. No, but it's something, and Emily likes her lifestyle. The house, the car, the salon, the shopping trips to Boston. You think you can provide that on a trainer's salary? She doesn't need all that stuff. She needs someone who actually cares about her. Right, someone like you. I finished my beer and set the bottle down carefully. Here's what's going to happen, Brad. I'm going to file for divorce, and Emily's going to realize that her comfortable life is about to disappear. When that happens, she's going to need someone to blame, someone who convinced her that love was more important than security. You're threatening me? I'm educating you. Emily's used to a certain standard of living. When she can't maintain it on alimony and whatever she makes from the salon, she's going to get resentful. And resentful Emily is not someone you want to be stuck with. Brad leaned across the table, his voice dropping to a growl. You don't know anything about her. About us. I know she called you within hours of our fight. I know you were her first thought when her marriage fell apart. That tells me this has been going on for a while. I stood up, dropping a 20 on the table. Good luck, Brad. You're going to need it. We're not done talking. Yeah, we are. He grabbed my arm as I started to leave. Sit down. I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then back up at his face. Brad, I've been working construction since I was 16. I've been in more bar fights than you've had protein shakes. You really want to do this? Something in my voice must have warned him. He released my arm, but didn't back down. She's going to leave you, he said. She's already gone, mentally. This marriage is over. You're probably right, but when it ends, Emily's going to learn something about the difference between fantasy and reality. And so are you. I left him sitting in the booth, staring after me with a mixture of anger and uncertainty. Outside, the November air was sharp and clean after the smoky atmosphere of the bar. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Brad said you two talked. We need to discuss this like adults. I typed back, discuss it with your lawyer. Her response was immediate. What lawyer? Smith, what did you do? I didn't answer. She'd find out soon enough. Back at the hotel, I called Patricia Vance's after-hours number. How did it go? She asked when I filled her in on the evening's events. Better than expected. He's definitely sleeping with her, probably has been for months. And he's not as smart as he thinks he is. Did you record the conversation? No, but I didn't need to. He basically admitted everything. More importantly, I got a read on their relationship. It's not just physical. He thinks he's rescuing her from me. That makes him dangerous. Dangerous how? He's going to push her to fight the divorce, convince her that she deserves more than she's legally entitled to, turn this into a war instead of a business transaction. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Smith, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go down this road? Contested divorces get ugly fast, especially when there's infidelity involved. It might be cheaper and cleaner to just offer a generous settlement and walk away. No, the word came out harder than I'd intended. Pat, I've spent 8 years being the accommodating husband, overlooking the slights, ignoring the disrespect, making excuses for her behavior. I'm done being generous to people who don't appreciate it. This could get expensive. I can afford expensive. What I can't afford is letting Emily and her boyfriend think they can walk all over me. After I hung up, I sat in the hotel room's single chair and thought about the look on Brad's face when I'd shown him the photo. Surprise, yes, but not shock. He'd known I might find out eventually. He just hadn't expected it to happen so soon. That suggested a level of planning that went beyond a simple affair. Emily and Brad had been discussing me, my marriage, probably my finances. They'd been making plans for a future that didn't include me. The question was, how detailed were those plans? My phone rang. Emily's number. I answered on the fourth ring. What? Smith, please. We need to talk. I thought Brad was handling our communication now. That's not, he was just trying to help. He thought maybe you'd listen to another man. I listened. He told me you deserve better than me, that you've been unhappy for years, that you're embarrassed by your blue-collar husband. I paused. Anything you'd like to add to that assessment? Silence. Emily, I never said those things. Which part? The part about deserving better or the part about being embarrassed? It's complicated. No, it's not. It's actually very simple. You've been having an affair with your trainer. You've been complaining to him about our marriage. And when I left, your first call was to him, not to a marriage counselor or a therapist or anyone who might actually help save our relationship. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Another long silence. I can't, she said finally, but not over the phone. Then explain it to your lawyer. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. Smith, no, please, don't do this. We can work it out. We had 8 years to work it out, Emily. You chose not to. I hung up and turned off the phone. Outside my hotel window, the city sparkled in the darkness, thousands of lights representing thousands of lives, thousands of stories. Some of them were probably love stories. Some were probably tragedies. Mine, I was beginning to realize, was a revenge story. The process server found Emily at the salon on Monday morning, delivering the divorce papers in front of her staff and several clients. I knew this because my phone started ringing at 9:47 a.m. and didn't stop for the next 3 hours. I was in my office, reviewing the quarterly reports, when Carol buzzed me on the intercom. Emily's here, she said in a tone that suggested I should brace for impact. She's agitated. Through my office's glass walls, I could see Emily in the reception area, pacing like a caged animal. She wore a black business suit that probably cost more than most people made in a week. But her usual perfect composure was nowhere to be found. Her face was flushed, her hair slightly disheveled, and she clutched the divorce papers in one white-knuckled fist. Send her in. Emily burst through my office door without waiting for Carol to announce her, slamming the papers down on my desk hard enough to scatter the quarterly reports. What the hell is this? I glanced at the papers without picking them up. Legal documents. I thought someone with your education would recognize them. Don't you dare get smart with me right now. She leaned across my desk, her voice rising. You filed for divorce without even trying to work things out? Without counseling or mediation or any kind of adult conversation? We had an adult conversation Thursday night. You told me exactly what you thought of me. I listened. I was angry. People say things when they're angry. Yeah, they do. They say what they really think, but are usually too polite to voice. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. The question is, did you mean it when you called me a blue-collar nobody, or did you mean it when you said we could work things out? Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Both, neither. Smith, you're twisting everything around. Am I? 'Cause from where I sit, it looks pretty straightforward. You're embarrassed by your husband. You've been having an affair with your trainer, and you got caught. The only thing you're upset about is the timing. Her face went white. I am not having an affair. Really? Then why did Brad Castellano call me to discuss our marriage? Why does he think he knows what's best for you? Why were you at his gym Friday afternoon having intimate conversations while wearing workout clothes I've never seen before? You followed me? I observed you in public, doing things that married women probably shouldn't do with men who aren't their husbands. Emily sank into the chair across from my desk, the fight going out of her, like air from a punctured balloon. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I was lonely. Lonely. Yes, you're always working, always focused on the business. We never talk anymore, never do anything together. I felt like I was married to a stranger. So you found someone else to talk to. It started innocently. Brad was just friendly, interested in what I had to say. He listened when I talked about the salon, about my dreams, about feeling invisible in my own marriage. And then nothing happened. We're friends. Yes, maybe I developed feelings, but I never acted on them. I never cheated on you, Smith. Not physically. Emotionally? She looked up, tears starting to form in her eyes. Maybe, I don't know. The lines got blurred. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. Emily had always been a good liar when it suited her purposes, but she looked genuinely distressed. Even if I believe that, I said finally, it doesn't change anything. You were emotionally involved with another man. You were sharing intimate details of our marriage with him. You were making plans for a life that didn't include me. I wasn't making plans, weren't you? Brad seemed pretty confident that you were going to leave me. He talked about you like you'd already made the decision. Emily's composure cracked completely. I was confused. I was unhappy and confused, and yes, maybe I said things I shouldn't have said. But I never decided anything. I never made any plans. What about the money? What money? I pulled out the financial records Carol had compiled, spreading them across the desk between us. The cash deposits that don't match your salon's receipts, the unexplained expenses, the charges at restaurants and hotels during times when you claimed to be working late. Emily stared at the papers, her face cycling through confusion, recognition, and finally something that looked like panic. I can explain. I'm listening. The cash deposits, some of our clients pay cash for services they don't want showing up on credit card statements. Botox, certain treatments their husbands don't know about. And you don't report this income? It's complicated. The money gets reinvested in the business or used for client appreciation events or skimmed off the books to avoid taxes. Emily's silence was answer enough. What about the restaurant and hotel charges? Business meetings, networking events. Sometimes I have to wine and dine potential clients or suppliers. At the Marriott downtown, the same hotel where I'm staying, her face went pale. That's coincidence. Is it, or were you checking to see if I was really staying there? Maybe planning to surprise me with a reconciliation visit that turned into something else when you found out I wasn't in my room. Smith, you're being paranoid. Am I? Because these charges go back 6 months, long before our fight, long before I moved out. I leaned forward. Who were you meeting at the Marriott, Emily? She stood abruptly, smoothing her skirt with shaking hands. I don't have to listen to this. I came here to try to save our marriage, and you're treating me like a criminal. You came here because you got served with divorce papers and realized your comfortable life is about to disappear. That's not true, isn't it? Let me guess. You talked to a lawyer this morning. They explained Massachusetts divorce law, told you that infidelity doesn't affect property division much, but financial impropriety does. Told you that if I can prove you've been hiding income or using marital assets inappropriately, it could impact your settlement. Emily's face confirmed my guess. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. My lawyer's going to subpoena your business records. We're going to account for every penny that's gone through that salon. If there's unreported income, the IRS is going to want their share. If marital assets were used inappropriately, that's going to be deducted from your settlement. You fool, I'm being thorough. Something I should have done years ago. She grabbed the divorce papers from my desk, crumpling them in her fist. You want a war? Fine, we'll have a war. But don't expect me to make it easy for you. I wouldn't dream of it. Emily stormed toward the door, then stopped and turned back. You know what I realized this morning? Brad was right. I do deserve better than this. Better than you. Then you should thank me for setting you free to find it. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the financial records spread across my desk. The numbers told a story of deception that went deeper than a simple affair. Emily had been systematically hiding income, using business accounts for personal expenses, and creating a financial cushion that she could access without my knowledge. The question was, had she been planning to leave me, or had she been preparing for the possibility that I might leave her? My intercom buzzed. Smith? Patricia Vance on line 1. Pat, please tell me you have good news. Define good. I've been doing some research on your wife's boyfriend. Brad Castellano, 32, owns Ironworks Gym. The business is leveraged to the hilt, behind on rent, and facing eviction in 60 days. Interesting. It gets better. He's been married twice before, both times to women with money. Both divorces resulted in significant settlements that he managed to burn through within 2 years. So he's a professional. Looks that way. Smith, I think your wife may be in over her head. If this guy is as calculating as his history suggests, she's not the hunter in this relationship. She's the prey. I thought about Emily's tears, her genuine confusion about the financial records, her insistence that nothing physical had happened. Pat, what if she's telling the truth? What if she hasn't actually cheated, just been manipulated by someone who's very good at this game? Does it matter? The emotional affair is just as damaging to the marriage. And if she's been hiding income, that's a separate issue. It matters to me. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Smith, are you having second thoughts about the divorce? No, but I'm having thoughts about who the real enemy is here. That evening, I drove past Ironworks Gym. The parking lot was nearly empty, and through the windows, I could see Brad at the front desk, talking on the phone with obvious agitation. His body language suggested the conversation wasn't going well. I parked across the street and watched. At 8:30, Emily's BMW pulled into the lot. She sat in her car for several minutes before going inside. Through the windows, I could see her talking to Brad. Even from a distance, their body language looked tense, argumentative. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. When Emily came back outside, she was crying. My phone rang as I watched her drive away. Smith? Her voice was small, defeated. Can we talk? Please? I'm listening. Not over the phone, in person. There are things I need to tell you. Things about Brad, about the money, about everything. Where? Our house. Please, I need to be somewhere that feels safe. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table where we'd shared thousands of meals over 8 years of marriage. She'd changed out of her business suit into jeans and an old sweater, the kind of comfortable clothes she wore when she was trying to think, not impress. Thank you for coming, she said without looking up. What did you want to tell me? Emily was quiet for a long moment, gathering her thoughts. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but tired. Brad asked me to marry him tonight. Congratulations. I said no. I sat down across from her, studying her face. Why? Because I realized something. He doesn't love me. He loves what he thinks I represent. Money, security, a way out of his problems. She looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time. You were right about the financial records. I have been hiding money, but not for the reason you think. Tell me. I was scared. Scared that someday you'd realize you could do better than me. Scared that you'd leave and I'd have nothing. So I started skimming cash from the salon, keeping it in a separate account, building a safety net. How much? About $40,000. Emily, I know it was wrong. I know it was stupid, but I was terrified of being dependent on someone who might decide I wasn't worth the trouble. I stared at her, seeing my wife clearly for perhaps the first time in years. Not the confident, ambitious woman she presented to the world, but someone who was fundamentally insecure, fundamentally afraid of being abandoned. Why didn't you just talk to me? Because I was ashamed. Because admitting I was scared would have meant admitting I wasn't the strong, independent woman you married. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. Because I thought if you knew how weak I really was, you'd leave anyway. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and Emily's quiet crying. I thought about 8 years of marriage, of small misunderstandings that had grown into large resentments of two people who had stopped really seeing each other. What about Brad? What about him? Do you love him? Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I thought I did. But tonight, when he proposed, all I could think about was how he'd spent the last 6 months telling me everything that was wrong with you, everything that was wrong with our marriage. He never once asked what was right about it. And what was right about it? She looked at me with something that might have been hope. You never gave up on me. Even when I gave you every reason to. Even when I was cruel and unfair and took you for granted, you kept trying. You kept building something for us, even when I was too stubborn or scared to appreciate it. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of 8 years pressing down on us both. Emily, I've filed for divorce. I've hired a lawyer. I've moved out. This isn't something we can just undo. I know, but maybe we could try to end it right. Without lawyers and fights and trying to hurt each other. Maybe we could remember that we used to love each other, even if we can't figure out how to do it now. I looked around the kitchen at the granite countertops I'd paid for, the custom cabinets she'd chosen, the breakfast nook where we'd shared coffee and dreams when we were young and optimistic about our future together. The money you hid. I wanted it returned to the marital assets. Of course. And I want you to file amended tax returns for any unreported income. I will. And Brad is out of your life completely. No contact, no friendship, nothing. Already done. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. All I saw was exhaustion and something that might have been relief. I can't promise we can save the marriage, Emily. Too much has been said. Too much trust has been broken. I know, but maybe we can save ourselves. Maybe we can figure out how to be decent people going through a terrible situation. I reached across the table and took her hand. For the first time in months, she didn't pull away. Maybe we can. 3 weeks later, I was back in Patricia Vance's office, but this time Emily was with me. We sat on opposite sides of the conference table, not as adversaries, but not quite as allies either. The divorce was still proceeding, but it had evolved from a war into something more like a negotiated peace. The financial disclosure is complete, Patricia said, reviewing the documents spread before her. All hidden assets have been accounted for. Amended tax returns have been filed, and the IRS has been paid what they were owed plus penalties. Emily winced at the mention of penalties, but nodded. It was the right thing to do. The property division is straightforward, Patricia continued. Smith retains full ownership of Turner Climate Solutions and the associated assets. Emily retains full ownership of Lux Beauty Salon. The house will be sold, with proceeds split equally after Smith is reimbursed for improvements made during the marriage. What about spousal support? Emily asked. Given the relatively short duration of the marriage, and both parties' ability to support themselves, we're recommending a nominal amount for 2 years. Enough to help with the transition, not enough to create long-term dependence. I looked at Emily. Are you okay with that? It's fair, she said quietly. More than fair, considering everything. Patricia gathered the documents. If you're both in agreement, I can have the final papers drawn up by the end of the week. The divorce should be finalized within 60 days. After Patricia left to prepare the paperwork, Emily and I sat in the conference room, surrounded by the debris of our marriage, financial statements, property assessments, legal documents that would formally end what we'd spent 8 years building. I saw Brad yesterday, Emily said suddenly. I looked up from the papers I'd been reviewing. Oh? He's leaving town. The gym went into foreclosure, and apparently he owes money to some people who aren't as patient as banks. I'm sorry. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Are you, really? I'm sorry you got hurt. I'm sorry you got used. I'm even sorry his business failed because that means other people probably got hurt too. I set down the papers. But I'm not sorry he's out of your life. He called me a fool for choosing you over him. Said I was giving up my chance at real happiness for a man who would never forgive me. What did you tell him? That maybe being a fool was better than being a sufferer. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and two people who had loved each other once and were trying to figure out how to stop without destroying each other in the process. Smith? Yeah. Do you think we could have made it work? If we'd been different people or made different choices or just tried harder? I considered the question seriously. Maybe, but we weren't different people, and we did make the choices we made. The question isn't whether we could have been happy. It's whether we can learn from this and be happy with other people. Will you be? Happy, I mean? Eventually. Will you? I hope so. I'm going to sell the salon. That surprised me. Why? Because it was never really mine. It was something I built with your money to impress people who didn't matter. I want to start over, build something that's actually mine. What will you do? I don't know yet. Maybe go back to school, maybe travel, maybe just figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be someone else. She smiled, and for a moment she looked like the girl I'd fallen in love with in college. What about you? I'm thinking about expanding the business, maybe opening an office in California. Turner Climate Solutions could be national within 5 years. That sounds like you, always building something bigger. What else am I going to do with my time? Emily laughed, a real laugh this time. Find someone who appreciates what you're building. Someone who's not too scared or stupid to see what she has. Maybe. Patricia returned with the preliminary paperwork, and we spent the next hour reviewing terms and conditions, signing documents that would legally dissolve our marriage. It was surprisingly anticlimactic. No drama, no last-minute revelations, just two people acknowledging that they'd tried and failed and were ready to move on. As we left the law office, Emily stopped on the sidewalk outside. "I want you to know something," she said. "I'm not proud of how I behaved. The affair, the hidden money, the way I treated you, none of it was who I wanted to be. We all make mistakes, Em. Some mistakes are bigger than others, and some people handle them better than others." She looked up at me with clear eyes. "You could have destroyed me. You had evidence of the unreported income, proof of the emotional affair, grounds to take me for everything I had, but you didn't. It wouldn't have made me feel better. It would have made a lot of people feel better. Most men would have wanted revenge." I thought about that for a moment. Maybe I got my revenge in a different way. How? By being better than the situation. By proving that I really was the man you should have appreciated instead of the man you were embarrassed by. Emily nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I'm not embarrassed anymore. I'm proud to have been married to you, even if I was too foolish to show it when it mattered." She kissed my cheek, a soft, final gesture, and walked away down the busy street. I watched her go, this woman who had been my wife, my partner, my biggest disappointment, and my greatest teacher. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol. "Caldwell Industries called. They want to discuss a project in Los Angeles. Interested?" I typed back, "Set up a meeting." As I walked to my truck, I thought about second chances and new beginnings, about the difference between revenge and justice, and about the strange ways that losing something you thought you wanted could lead you to something you actually needed. The November air was sharp and clean, full of possibility. For the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow. Epilogue. 6 months later. The Los Angeles office of Turner Climate Solutions occupied the top floor of a gleaming tower in Century City, with panoramic views of the Pacific Ocean and the Santa Monica Mountains. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold, and reflected on how much had changed since that disastrous Thanksgiving dinner. The California expansion had exceeded every projection. We'd landed contracts with 3 major film studios, 2 tech companies, and a chain of luxury hotels. The innovative cooling systems we'd developed for the desert climate were already being studied by engineering firms across the Southwest. My assistant, a sharp young woman named Maria, who reminded me of Carol but with a West Coast edge, knocked on my office door. "Mr. Turner, your 7 o'clock is here. Send her in." Dr. Sarah Chen entered my office with the confident stride of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. She was a professor of environmental engineering at UCLA, and we'd been working together on a revolutionary air purification system that could reduce energy consumption by 40% while improving air quality. She was also the woman I'd been dating for the past 3 months. "Sorry I'm late," she said, setting her briefcase down and accepting the glass of wine I offered. "Faculty meeting ran long. You know how academics love to hear themselves talk. Present company accepted. I prefer to let my work do the talking." She settled into the chair across from my desk, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Speaking of which, I have news about the prototype. Good news or bad news? The best kind of news. The EPA wants to fast-track approval for commercial applications. We could have our first installations running within 6 months." I raised my wine glass in a toast. "To revolutionary air purification. To partnership," she countered, clinking her glass against mine. Sarah was everything Emily hadn't been. Intellectually curious, professionally accomplished, genuinely interested in my work and excited about our collaboration. She challenged me in ways that made me better, supported me in ways that mattered, and never once made me feel like I needed to apologize for who I was or what I'd achieved. "How was your day?" she asked, settling back in her chair. "Interesting. I got a call from my ex-wife." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly. She knew the basic outline of my divorce, but had never pressed for details. "Everything okay?" "More than okay." She wanted to let me know she's engaged. "How do you feel about that?" "Happy for her, actually. She's marrying a teacher, someone she met in the graduate program she started last fall. Apparently he appreciates her intelligence and ambition without feeling threatened by either. Sounds like she learned something from your marriage." "We both did." Sarah studied my face with the analytical precision she brought to everything. "Any regrets?" About the divorce? No. About the way it ended? Sometimes. I spent a lot of years being angry about things I should have just addressed directly. And now? Now I'm here with you, building something new and better than anything I had before. I stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering darkness. Besides, the past is just data. What matters is what you do with the information. Sarah joined me at the window, slipping her hand into mine. Very philosophical for an engineer. I've been reading poetry. Really? No. But I thought it sounded impressive. She laughed, the sound filling my office with warmth. You're an idiot, but I'm your idiot. Yes, you are. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear into the Pacific. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, new opportunities to build something lasting and meaningful. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged, with someone who saw me clearly and loved what she saw. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol back in Boston. Quarterly reports are in. Best year in company history. Congratulations, boss. I smiled and put the phone away without responding. The numbers were satisfying, but they weren't the real measure of success. The real measure was standing beside me, planning our future together with the same precision and passion she brought to everything else in her life. Dinner? I asked. Your place or mine? Ours. Tara squeezed my hand. I like the sound of that. As we left the office together, I thought about the long journey that had brought me to this moment. The humiliation, the anger, the slow process of learning to value myself enough to demand better from the people in my life. It hadn't been easy and it hadn't always been pretty, but it had been necessary. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at the people who hurt you. Sometimes it's building a life so good that their opinions stop mattering. Sometimes it's learning that you were worth more than they ever realized. And more importantly, that you always knew it. The elevator doors closed behind us, carrying us down toward the street and whatever came next. I was ready for all of it.